And we are live.
Well, good evening, everybody. This is Tim Terranova, the proud superintendent of the Victor Central School District. It is Wednesday, March 24th. It's been exactly a month since we discussed things at our last town hall. Had a great group of students on with me in February. Unfortunately, for those of you out there, it's just me tonight. So I understand it might get a little boring. I apologize. I'd love to bring guests on, but I felt like tonight, because we had a lot to talk about, especially around reopening, I figured I'd give you as much information as we have, talk to you a little bit about what we're planning to do, and then take your questions as much as I can from Facebook Live and answer as many as I possibly can if I have the answers. If we don't have the answers, we'll continue to answer them throughout the week. Before I get into the reopening concept, we do have some celebrations and shout outs. I was lucky enough last Saturday to go to the Arrow of Light Awards for 3 local Cub Scouts who go to Victor Central School District. I believe they're all in the intermediate building. Arrow of Light is the highest award for a Cub Scout and puts these young leaders right on track for Eagle Scouts and the Eagle Scout Award in about 5 to 6 years, which, as you know, is an incredible accomplishment. So I want to shout out to Braden, Mason, and Tyler, who earned the Arrow of Light Award through, I believe it's Cub Scout Pack 50. I could be wrong. I apologize if that's the case. But congratulations to Braden, Mason, and Taylor. Great job. It's incredible what they had to do to earn this Cub Scout Award. And not everybody gets it. And they are in great shape. Can't wait to attend their Eagle Scout ceremony in a few years. We also had actually, I'll give you 2 updates on Golden Apple winners. We recently had a teacher, a multi-age teacher at the intermediate building, Tracy Nally, who was a Golden Apple Award winner. I believe it's Channel 10 who broadcast it. She was nominated as an exceptional teacher. She also joins recently nominated and honored Jessica Franzak from the Early Childhood School, another one of our phenomenal teachers in Victor. They both have been Golden Apple Award winners in the last 6 weeks, which is amazing from the Victor Central School District. Shout out to the VIPE Corps. On March 13th, they submitted a video of a preliminary performance to what's called the WGI, or the national organization that oversees the VIPE percussion groups across the country. And they were named a semi-finalist for the WGI Award. This week, they're going to be performing and recording for both the WGI semifinals, which is very prestigious, as well as the New York State Championships. This is the 4th time VIPE has made WGI semifinals. VIPE has 26 performing members for 2021. I was lucky enough to witness a small portion of that performance on Saturday. What an incredible group. They're a 7-time New York State champion and the 2017 WGI bronze medalist with a chance at becoming a medalist this year. So shout out to our, how many we have here? 26 performers. Great group, the VIPE group. If you get a chance to see them, please don't hesitate to watch. They're incredible. They come right out of our marching band, which is another tremendous group, as well as our winter guard, who is performing as well. VHS High School Musical is going to be John and Jen. They've done a ton of work. This is a very unique performance. It's going to be digitally streamed starting April 9th through April 19th. And it's going to be a fantastic performance. It's the musical is John and Jen, our high school musical. I wish we were doing it in person in front of a large audience. We're not able to do that this year. So you can purchase the digital streamed recording. I think it's $15. Go right to our website. It should direct you to where to go to get that. And you can watch it anytime between April 9th and April 19th. And I think you have a 48-hour window once you purchase it. So great job, our musical performing arts. We are having mass virtual chorus concerts all over the district, including a 4th grade, a 7th grade, and an 8th grade, as well as a 5th grade band concert. And I know I'm missing a bunch of them. Really appreciate the work our music teachers are doing to have performances, primarily virtual right now, but continuing to get our kids together to play and perform. And pretty soon, we hope to get them in person. Athletics continues to have wonderful successes. not only on the field or in the gymnasium, but also we have a great girls lacrosse team who's done some fantastic work around our facilities, cleaning them up and doing sort of the hard work that's necessary to keep our facilities clean. They didn't need to do that, but the varsity, I don't know if it was the varsity and the JV, but our girls lacrosse went above and beyond the call of duty to do that. It just shows the character of our kids on that team and all our teams. And again, an amazing accomplishment. 11 out of 11 winner teams earned state scholar athlete status, which means 65% or more of our varsity rosters had greater than a 90% GPA. Let me say that again because it's incredible. 11 out of 11 winter sports teams earned varsity state scholar athlete status. 65% or more of the roster had greater than 90% GPA. And I don't know another district that gets that type of academic results. Continue to look for updates like this, our good news, shout outs, positive things going on, both through our Facebook as well as Twitter accounts, either the Victor Twitter account or my own Victor Twitter account. Continue to check out those on social media. Let us know the good things that are happening. So that's some good news. I just looked at my notes. This is the 20th. It's either the 20th or 21st virtual town hall we've had since the end of March of 2020. Roughly a year ago this week is when we started the town halls. And we did them once a week during the pandemic in the spring when there was no in-person schooling, and we've done once a month. Did a couple in the summer around the reopening, and have done once a month since September. So we appreciate you tuning in, and we're going to continue to do these virtual town halls and hopefully do some face-to-face ones in the future to make sure that we are communicating with all of you. Again, in a second, I'm going to give you some updates for the best of my knowledge as superintendent around reopening plans. I encourage you to ask some questions. We're keeping track of those questions. I'll answer as many as I can now or later this week. We also are going to have a question and answer document that we're going to send to the community by tomorrow that will articulate some of the questions that we know many of you have and the answers as best we can to them. Again, that will be coming out tomorrow and we'll go to the community. So, and last but not least, if we have time tonight, because as you know, we go to roughly 7:30, I'll give you a quick update on the budget. We do have a budget workshop tomorrow night that's going to be in person from 6 p.m. till approximately 8 p.m., but I'll give you an update at the end of that. So reopening. As of today, we currently as a district have 5 active cases. 4 are students and 1 staff member. That number continues to be significantly low, especially compared to earlier in the year. And that has been historic across our community and our area, which is why roughly a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, the CDC, which is short for Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, sent out changes in their social distancing requirement. So this was actually updated March 19th. I'm sorry, it's not that long ago. And here are some of the main highlights of the CDC changes. Revised physical distancing recommendations to reflect at least 3 feet between students in classrooms and provide clear guidance when a greater distance, such as 6 feet, is recommended. That was the big shift. It went from 6 feet recommended to 3 feet between students in classrooms. They also removed a recommendation for physical barriers and clarified the role of community transmission levels in decision-making. I'll explain that in a second. So what does this mean? So between students in classrooms in elementary schools, students should be at least 3 feet apart. In middle schools and high school, students should also be at least 3 feet apart in areas of low, moderate, or substantial community transmission. However, in areas of high community transmission, middle and high school students should be 6 feet apart if cohorting is not possible. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Besides typical, well, let me just say this about our county. My understanding is we are at a substantial level in the Victor School District at this point. which means that we're still allowed to have 3 feet distance for middle and high school students. If we did shift to the high level, then that would unfortunately shift our middle and high school to 6 feet apart, which would then cause us not to be able to be in person every day based upon the CDC guidelines. So that's something we have to monitor closely. Again, at this point, we're considered substantial, which is not at the highest level. So we're still allowed to have the 3 foot distancing across pre-K through 12th grade. Where do we maintain 6 feet of distancing? There's some specific ones. When masks cannot be worn, such as when eating, so that's lunchtime. During activities when increased exercise is occurring, such as singing, exercise, or singing, shouting, band, certainly sports. With those activities would be recommended to be moved outdoors or to a large, well-ventilated space when possible. So during singing, band, sports, exercise, they're requiring 6 feet from the CDC. Now that's a shift. That used to be 12 feet. That has been shifted to 6 feet, which is positive for us, and as well as common areas such as school lobbies and the auditorium. So when our kids are standing still in an area for roughly 15 minutes or longer, and it's a large area with large numbers of students, then they are recommending 6 feet. That does not include hallways. Hallways, our kids are moving from one place to another. They're able to get to their classes, get to their location, so they're not standing in a common area for a long period of time. So hallways are, from my understanding, as typical, which is typically less than 3 feet, but it's certainly for a much less amount of time. So that's the CDC. We have 2 other groups that we're certainly paying attention to. One is the New York State Department of Health, and one is our outstanding partners in the Ontario Health Department, and under the direction of Mary Beer, who is the health director, as well as Chris DeBolt, who is the Ontario County Administrator. Mr. DeBolt did write to us after the CDC requirements came out and the shift into 3 feet, and said Ontario County is encouraged by the recent announcement by CDC making modifications to their K-12 operational guidelines. The county is fully supportive of any local school district that decides to implement these new guidelines after consulting with their medical director, school board, staff, and community. While Ontario County does not have the authority to issue guidance itself, we continue to be supportive of scientific-based guidance implemented by the CDC, and we stand ready and eager to work closely with our local schools to help them implement the new CDC operational guidelines in any way we can if they choose to do so. So that's a supportive email from the county. As they said, they don't have the authority to issue the guidance itself. Typically, that comes from the New York State Department of Health, which as of this evening, has not said anything. So one of the issues we're dealing with is hopefully getting some guidance from the New York State Department of Health, since right now our guidance is coming from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is the national entity, and support from our Ontario County Health Department. It would be beneficial to us, as well as all the school districts around us, to get more specific guidance from the New York State Department of Health. That's something that we are hopeful will occur, I'm hoping, in the next week to 2 weeks. So that's something to keep a close eye on. I'm going to get into some more specific issues and challenges, certainly answer some of your questions. I'll try to take different questions at different times. I encourage you to fill out the parent survey that was sent this weekend. That survey basically asks 2 questions. Are you interested in coming back to school full-time 5 days a week, or 100%? Do you want to stay 100% virtual, which needs to be an option in this case, that we're able to open full-time? So far, we've had roughly 3,300 responses, which is awesome. You have another day, 2.5 days to fill it out. We have until Friday to fill this out. Out of the Responses over 3,113 said they are coming. Students, parents said they were coming back full time, 5 days a week. And we're right around 155 to 160 that are put down fully remote. So obviously there's a huge percentage of students and parents who are opting to have their kids come back if they're able to do so 5 days a week, with 155 to 160 right now, anticipating going fully remote across pre-K through 12th grade. Again, we will have updated numbers on that by the end of the week. And also we'll have the updated transportation numbers, which we'll see in a couple of minutes, will be important in terms of that. So one of the things, I'm just going to keep track of the biggest challenges for us as we move through this week and then into the weeks after vacation. One of the challenges is we really could use guidance from the New York State Department of Health to help us move through this process. And many districts are concerned about that, including us. And we're waiting to see if they are going to give us any of the guidance in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Certainly our county health department, it plays a big role. So as they said, they can't issue guidance, but they can support the CDC. So we're going to hear from our county as well in the next couple of weeks. So we need to monitor that closely to make sure that we are safely able to open. We certainly believe in the CDC and recognize that and are encouraged by it, but we could use some support from the state health department as well. Another challenge right now is transportation. I don't know if I read that, if I have this here. Transportation, according to CDC, is create distance between children on school buses. For example, seat children 1 child per row when possible. Masks are required by federal order on school buses and other forms of public transportation in the United States. So we're currently doing that. We currently have kids 1 per seat. It does say where possible. If we were going to come back 5 days a week, we would need at least 2 students per seat, as well as allow siblings to sit together on a bus. If we could do that, then we believe with about 20 to 30% of our families who would opt out of transportation, which is, I think, typical, we'd be able to transport all our students to and from school. We would not be able to transport all of our students to and from school if we're tied to 1 student per seat. So this is another area of clarification we're looking for, both from our county health department and certainly clarification from the state health department, because the way it's written right now through the CDC is it's talking about 1 child per row, but it does say when possible. So that's, again, unfortunately ambiguous, and we needed more guidance on that because that's going to be important. Again, we would be hopeful to have 2 kids per seat on a bus with family members being able to sit together. We would encourage families that are able to do so to transport their kids to and from school. That would be very helpful. Certainly, though, we know that many families are not able to do that. If we're able to come back 5 days a week, a main focus area is to get our kids acclimated back into a schedule similar to what they've been used to for years and years. And that would take some strong emphasis on social emotional support of our kids and our students as they come in. They're going to need to adapt again, especially our younger students, but all of our students, to the socialization necessary to have 23, 22 kids in a classroom. They haven't been used to that. Nobody has. So that's a big push for our teachers and our staff. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I mean, academics is important, but certainly the social, emotional, and acclimation piece to this is critical and the most critical piece. And then the second piece is trying to assess our students academically and how they are, especially if we can get them in front of us consistently, and then work to build in those routines and rituals that are so critical, whether they're in 1st grade or 11th grade. And certainly then increase accountability, both around certainly attendance, but also academic work as we move through the last 8 to 10 weeks of the school year. That would be the goal, but I can't emphasize enough that our first goal is to address their social emotional needs, our kids' social emotional needs, it's very complex. We know we've always had kids with complex social emotional needs. There's more now thanks to the pandemic. So we need to address that. And that's going to be a strong focus from not only our teachers, but our counselors and our administrators moving forward. And again, we are hopeful that if we can get to 5 days a week, it's certainly going to help the in-person instruction as well, and which will give our teachers the ability to assess our students where they're at, whether it's reading, writing, math, or other areas, and certainly subject matters when they get into older classes. Let me look for a few questions before I get into class sizes and use of outdoors. Maybe they'll actually address some of them. Any plans for the seniors? They are feeling forgotten. We have tremendous plans for the seniors. Mr. Siesto and the senior advisors, as well as a parent connection group. Senior parents are working diligently on those plans. You should have received some of the information, and you're going to receive more information as we move forward. Lots of different celebrations, potentially also adopting seniors through the parent group. And we're looking at graduation. I don't want to mess up the date. I believe it's Thursday, the 24th of June on our own Corbett Field. We're still holding off on the number of visitors for that graduation because we're hopeful that we'll be able to get more and more and get a typical graduation size in terms of visitors. We have to wait for clearance on that, but we're going to get all our graduates together. That's the plan, graduate, and many other experiences, including the senior ball and other senior activities. How will lunch be socially distanced? Let me get to lunch. That's going to be one of our biggest challenges moving forward. It's going to take really three things. It's going to take using mostly multiple locations for lunch because there is the 6-foot rule. So not only will we have in some schools kids eating in the cafeteria, but we'll also have kids sitting in other large spaces and or classrooms still. That's going to take some space needs. The second thing is people and supervision. If we're going to spread kids out at lunch, whether it's in the ECS or the high school, we're going to have adults being able to supervise that, which means we need more adults to supervise lunch than is typical. So we're working on strategies to access more adults for help in that area, whether it's hiring more teacher aides or whether it's using existing staff a little bit differently. Through the contracts and making sure that we're doing that appropriately. But we're going to need more adult support for lunch. We're going to need more space, and it's going to increase the cleaning needs significantly because we'll be cleaning up for an entire school lunch program rather than half, which is also apparent for the overall cleaning. You know that we have spent a lot of time and finances on increasing our cleaning staff this year. They've done an incredible job regarding that. But it's going to take even more support around our cleaning staff to keep things clean and make sure that they can clean up the increased mess and issues as we have, close to 4,000 kids, if possible, back into this district at one time. So that's going to be an area of focus. But we do have plans around space. We're making plans around supervision, and we're continuing to emphasize plans around increased cleaning for those areas. How many COVID cases this academic year were transmitted at school? I can't say zero, but it's as close to zero as possible. There may have been 1 or 2, maybe 3 potentially, although there hasn't been confirmation transmitted at school. But it's anywhere between 0 and 2 or 3. And it's, in other words, we have an incredibly positive transmission rate, not positive transmission rate, but positive case of not transmitting COVID student to student or teacher to teacher. We did have some transmission in our of the virus in our transportation department in the fall. And thank goodness everybody was okay. And that what an incredible group of people that came back to work and did a fantastic job. That was the one area where we had some adult to adult transmission. I'm not saying that it was 0% for the rest of the year anywhere else, but it was as close to that as possible. We felt very strongly that this was an extremely safe place. What is taking so long to get the kids back into school? Exactly what I said. The guidance from the state the guidance that has been in place that involved 6-foot distancing and really getting clarification. One of the things we want to do is follow the science and follow the safety procedures. And we certainly don't want to put kids or staff at risk and then not be have oversight from our health department that says it's okay to do that. That would be a serious consequences around that. Certainly the biggest could be people getting ill. We feel like it's safe. We feel like the CDC is going to be very helpful to us, but we really need some more information over the next couple of weeks from our state health department. There's a question on transportation. As I said, it's currently, we're still trying to figure that out around the spacing, but we're going to need at least 2 kids per seat. For kids who have a significantly early or late lunchtime, will they be able to eat at another point during their day? For example, if lunch is served late in the school day, are kids permitted to eat something earlier in their school day? I'm thinking of snack times at the elementary grade level specifically. And how does 3 to 6 feet play into this? Right now, our elementary principals are working on that. We're hopeful to keep snack. I mean, if we have to, it's an incredibly important time, especially at the elementary level. And so they're working on ways to either utilize the mask, keep the mask semi on when the kids eat, or separate them for brief periods of time to be able to eat snack. And those are some of the unique things that we have to work out over the next 3 weeks or so to make sure that's effective. But we are thinking about that, and it is important. Will intermediate students be able to be in person for their chorus and band activities that are typically held before school but have been on Zoom this year? That's a great question. I don't have the answer to that right now. A lot of it depends on transportation because it is before school. So that's something that we will continue to monitor. I will tell you though, if we get the clearance that is matched to the CDC, which is 6 feet social distancing for music and singing and instrument playing, then that would enable most of our ensembles to play in person during the day, which would be a great thing. And then we just have to figure out what is possible with the groups that go before school, especially around the transportation piece. So that's a great question. We'll read one more, then I'll move forward on some other things. There's some great questions here. I've heard other districts in Monroe County are going back full-time in mid-April. How are they pulling it off when we are still waiting for permission? I think we're pretty similar to the Monroe County school districts. If you're talking about the bigger districts that have talked about coming back full-time, because of the 3-foot change with the CDC, we're basically in the same spot as they are. They're also pushing forward, but with caution and hesitance. And they are also advocating for more information from the state health department to get clarity around that. I'm not aware, but I could be wrong, of a district that, as Jay said, they're definitely coming back regardless of what happens. In fact, Monroe County's got some challenges right now because they are actually, some of their communities are in a high COVID zone, which automatically shifts that CDC guidance to 6 feet for their middle and high school. So they're dealing with that right now. But if you're talking about schools that are already full-time in person, that would be most likely because they have space, resources around space that we don't have, and they're able to spread their kids across 6 feet. That has been occurring in a variety of districts, especially at the elementary level, that have space needs. All right, so I'm going to get back to the questions shortly. Let's see, class sizes and use of outdoors. So I'm just going to give you the general guidelines we're trying to use around that. The CDC states, and actually the New York State Health Department also talked about this, that we need to measure 3 feet from the middle of a seat of a desk to the middle of the seat next to it. So middle of the seat to middle of the seat. That's what we're looking at right now, and that's what we're trying to attempt to do. That is pretty, when you look at that, that's a full classroom of desks. Now, what do I mean by full? In some rooms that could be 24 or 25, potentially 26 seats in some rooms. So we're able, based upon these expectations, to seat full classes in classrooms. There are a few classrooms that might not, that might be over that limit, especially at the high school and the junior high. And I know we're working on that to make decisions if we need to reschedule or change the schedules of a small number of kids. I'm not sure that could happen. We put that in our survey. There's a potential for that to happen. We're hopeful that would be to a minimum because of the space that we do have and the 3-foot spacing that's allowing us to have what I would call full classrooms. We are going to utilize the outside as much as we can on an individual basis, certainly, but outdoors, especially for phys ed, some of our other experiences, individual classrooms based upon, what the building's doing and what the building leadership is allowing. I think it's something that is our advantage, certainly to our advantage in end of April, May, and June. So that would be something that we want to continue to utilize. And I know, like I said, going back to large classes, that'd be something that the individual teachers are talking about with their principals to make sure that we're, safely putting the kids in that classroom at a safe distance and making sure that you're applying the 3-foot rule as best we can. At this point, visitors, I know there was some discussion about visitors. This is a challenge right now because according to the CDC, please limit any non-essential visitors if you go back to 3-foot distancing, whether it's visitors, volunteers, and activities involving any external groups or organizations as much as possible. So I know at the elementary level, especially all levels, we'd like to have visitors. We are going to significantly limit visitors if we're able to do this because we want to follow the CDC guidance and also make sure, that we're protecting our students and our staff until they loosen that up. That guidance around visitors is going to be pretty similar to what it is now. And I know that's, that's not the greatest news I can tell you, especially with this community and all the parents and the community members that like to volunteer and support the classroom. We would love it, and we will get back to that. But certainly initially, we're going to significantly limit the visitors that are able to come in to classrooms in school. Let me just talk about one more time, hallways versus common areas. Again, we have had kids in hallways with really short, small distancing because you have to. If you walk through, example, our junior high, when classes change, kids are walking up and down stairwells, kids are next to each other, near each other for very brief periods of time. They're doing a great job in terms of doing their best, but the kids get next to each other in hallways. That certainly would continue under this model. But if we're talking about what they call common areas like an auditorium or areas where kids or adults are standing there in a large group for longer than 15 minutes, that's something where we would significantly space kids out, and we would need to do that. But hallways we're feeling comfortable with, especially since, as I mentioned earlier from an earlier question, we have very little, if any, transmission due to that we're aware of. So that helps us in terms of hallways. Quick mention here of band, orchestra, chorus, and phys ed. As I mentioned, the 6 feet rule is currently under focus or under the expectation of CDC. So we're helpful not only to have the band groups, orchestra, and chorus performing, but also physical education. This will help them tremendously. The other advantage of phys ed is hopefully our weather will be nice, especially end of April through May and June. And that would help our phys ed classes get outside with some of the same mask wearing expectations as we have in athletics. As many of you know, in athletics, kids, we try to keep the masks on at all times. The one time where they can take it off at different time levels is in the middle of competition when they're unable to wear it due to breathing concerns. We would consider phys ed, if we're exercising at a significant rate, we give permission for our phys ed teachers to really oversee that. And if kids needed to periodically take mask breaks, or if they're running, at a high level, taking their masks off while they're running briefly, that's something that we would allow based upon our athletic rules. But certainly they'd be masked up at all other times and in most physical education classes. Let me take a few more questions as we go through this. And if I repeat one, I apologize. Why wait for New York State Department of Health for guidance? You already have guidance at the federal level. We feel it's just another unnecessary hoop to jump through. Regarding buses, let siblings sit together. Yeah, I'm all for letting the siblings sit together and getting at least 2 kids on a bus, on a seat. Why wait for the New York State Department of Health? Like I said, we're hopeful to get guidance from the New York State Department of Health. We're either going to do that or hopeful to get more clarification from our own county Department of Health. Again, we're excited to have the CDC weigh in on this, and we do feel like they're strongly represented in their science and what they value. And that's why we are spending countless hours planning for a full reopening. But we still need to work out some of those details. And we would like more specific guidance from the entity that's actually expected to guide our health and welfare in school districts, which is the New York State Department of Health. They've been silent as of now. That is one advocacy point from the community that we would love to have, is if you want to give them a call or write them a note to say what's going on and around your guidance, and please follow the CDC guidance. That's something that would certainly be appreciated. But we're waiting because we're trying to get more information in the next couple of weeks. I am hopeful after break we'll have that. What is the date that is being aimed for? Even if it has to change, it would still be helpful to know what the district is planning for. So I've made public, the second half of April is our target. It typically would be the week of April 19th. So that would give us a couple weeks coming back from break, April 5th and April 12th. That is subject to change. And I say the week of April 19th because we're not certain exactly which day that would be. But that is our target date. And what I would do is just simply try to give you as much information and be transparent when we learn more information and have better guidance as we move through April break and certainly into the week of April 5th. But that would be the target area. Let's see. Just have kids eat in classroom. What's the big deal? Well, actually, that is one of our ideas. The big deal, however, is supervision of those classrooms and making sure that we can clean all those classrooms frequently if we're going to do that. So in some levels, there will be significant kids eating in classrooms, but we're going to probably try to space larger groups out as well to help with supervision. In other places, we may not need as many classrooms and we could use the larger spaces. Can you address what will happen with masks? I didn't catch that. What about face shields or desk shields? Thank you. Mask wearing is going to be mandatory. We're not changing any guidance, and we haven't seen any guidance change around mask wearing. So we would expect masks to be worn at all times, following the guidance that we've been following the last few months, which is certain mask breaks more frequently at the younger levels than the older levels. And eating lunch, certainly masks would be taken off. And then for certain activities, brief periods of time, whether it's singing, playing an instrument, or like I said earlier, high exertion in a phys ed class. But other than that, masks would be worn all the times and all the time. Now, one of the unique things, and I'm glad this question was asked, I go back to the CDC guidance, if I could find it, which says right at the beginning that, let's see here, right now they are taking away the requirement that barriers are used. They're not finding that barriers are an effective means of blocking transmission. So barriers have actually been taken away by the CDC as something to utilize. Now, I know there's going to be some districts that potentially still use those polycarbonate barriers, but again, according to their guidance, it's not mandated. And really the focus should be masks, cleaning and sanitizing the areas, as well as certainly washing hands, staying home when feeling ill, and doing our best with the social distancing requirements, whether it's 3 feet or 6 feet. I don't understand why things are being changed when there are only 3 months left. Why not finish the year the way it is and figure this stuff out for next year? Great question. We've always been a proponent in our district of, if it's safe to do so, to follow the science and get our kids back to what I'll call semi-normalcy. There's a large group of families too that feel that way, that would, not just in our district, but across districts, that would like to get semi-normal and get kids back in school 5 days a week, as much as we can in a safe way. The social and emotional toll of kids being out of school for multiple days a week is significant. I don't know anyone, very few people would argue that. I do understand there's some students who are thriving in this environment. I get it. I completely understand that. And some of them are our youngest students, and some of them are in the high school. What our job is to get back to semi-normalcy for the greater good of getting some stability and social emotional support, as well as academic intervention in person as much as we can, and certainly address the needs, because there will be transition needs of our students. There's going to be kids who are going to struggle coming back 5 days a week. We understand that as well. That's why we are currently planning for the social emotional needs and really working on looking at ways to potentially, just make sure that transition is much smoother, which is why I'm being somewhat general around, what day we're coming back, how we're coming back the week of April 19th, what that's going to look like, because we need to work out those details. But I get the feeling, I get it. It could be an easy solution just to continue to do what we're doing. But if we have the guidance necessary to reopen full time, then we are going to approach that safely and try to do it. I may have missed this, but why isn't the current hybrid model an option in the survey, as in stay as we are? Because we don't have the resources to offer multiple models beyond fully in person or 100% virtual. Right now, our two options are hybrid and virtual, but we're not going to be able to offer 3 different models at the same time. So our focus has been, if we're able to do this and go through with this, that we would have the 2 options, which is in person or 100% virtual. What about the seniors who have schedules with maybe 2 classes in a day? Will they be able to leave for the large block of time? They have study hall, lunch, etc. Or will they be expected to stay inside? I'll get you an answer on that. We'll get an answer through the high school. I don't have an answer to that at this moment, but that's something we need to find one for. What happens to remote kids of teachers who are teaching 5 days? Not everyone is comfortable being in person, so what is the plan there? I already feel it's too much video time with poor quality audio 4 days a week. So the plan right now is to certainly keep the same model. We're attempting to keep the same model at the secondary level, where kids would Zoom in, if they're 100% virtual, to the classes when kids are in person. And then we're working with our elementary staff to see if we can secure, if it's possible to secure staff members to focus only on the 100% virtual number of students. And then we would certainly look to increase live instruction for those 100% virtual kids, certainly above the level that we are right now, and by designating certain staff to do that at the elementary level. Again, a lot depends on the numbers. They're extremely low right now. Like I said, we have between 155 to 160 students signed up for out of pre-K through 12, signed up for 100% virtual. Certainly that could increase over time, but if that number stays low, then it's much more doable than if we have large numbers of 100% learners. Let me talk just for a minute before I get to more questions. Let me talk for a little bit about quarantining. 2 things around that. One is the health department is the group that decides quarantining. And the school district does not determine that. The school district talks to the health department, and then the health department uses that information to make the decision. I know there's a small number of cases where people have become pretty upset at the health department for quarantining. I would ask you to be patient around that and be patient with them. They're doing their job and they're following the science around quarantining. And it's one of the reasons we've been able to stay open. So they do make the final decisions on that. And I would ask your patience and cooperation with our Ontario County Health Department when they make those tough calls telling you that your child needs to be quarantined or an adult needs to be quarantined. In terms of coming back full time, you'd have to anticipate that there's the increased chance that more people could be quarantined. So an unfortunate byproduct of coming back full time might be that if we get a small number of cases in certain locations and we have 23 or 24 kids in a classroom and they're 3 feet apart, the health department is going to have to make some decisions. So do they quarantine the entire class when now they're not necessarily doing that all the time? So we could end up in situations where kids, larger groups of kids and adults are quarantined. If that happens, then we will adapt where they would go like we are now on 100% remote for that period of time. But I just want people to understand the more population we put in the school, certainly the greater chance for quarantining larger numbers of groups based upon how the science works with quarantining people. So that's a big that could be a big challenge moving forward in this model. Our nurses' office is under a lot of stress already, as you can tell. They've done an incredible job keeping not only track of our students and staff and keeping them healthy, but keeping track of those health forms that we need to be filling out every day. We're trying to gain some guidance on that. We're trying to figure out, because basically we're going to have to double the load of checking the health forms at the beginning of the day if we have everybody back. And so that's a huge resource issue with our health offices. We're working on that logistics. Certainly our nurses are going to be significantly busy around this model. It's another area of focus along with the many areas that we have going forward that we're trying to work out. We really need your cooperation either way, whether we, whatever happens in terms of hybrid versus in person. Around filling out that health form, having your students fill that out, making sure you're filling it out if you're a staff member, filling it out for your kid if it's doable that way. Certainly, the more people fill those out, and I know it gets old after a while, the less people have to run around trying to chase after people who didn't fill out their health form, which isn't helpful and takes time away from our ability to open up school. So that's something to continue to emphasize. And a good big shout out to our nurses' office. Let me try to get to some more questions. I think I answered this, but in the event going back full time leads to an increase in cases, how might this affect what is currently being allowed district-wise? Has there been any guidance on what is acceptable as far as numbers go? If numbers do increase, if I'm assuming COVID, is there a plan in place to keep academic, extracurricular, and other student activities, i.e. senior events, graduation, open for the remainder of the year? That is going to be a challenge, I'll be honest with you. We, again, as I mentioned, if we get people back, and I hope that we keep our cases low, but if we start to spread, again, now the advantage we have right now that is significant which we didn't have as soon as really 2 to 3 weeks ago, is our entire faculty and staff who chooses to do so has now the ability to have been vaccinated. That's a huge advantage to our staff. But as you know, who hasn't been vaccinated is our students. So if we bring people back, there is a challenge around quarantining. And like I said earlier, if they quarantine people for 10 days, that would be full quarantine. They're not going to make exceptions most likely to different groups. So there is a slight risk that could happen to extracurricular activities, as well as potentially we have to keep an eye on senior events too. I mean, it's one of the challenges that we're facing if we reopen, and one of the things we have to focus on if that occurs. If a child needs to quarantine due to contact tracing, would they be provided with virtual work for them to do during that time? Yes, we're currently doing that now, and we would continue to do that. I got a student saying that they're concerned that no one asked the kids about coming back 5 days a week. And there's certainly kids that aren't happy about it. I can tell you I have 2 teenagers home myself, a sophomore and a senior, and they are not extremely happy about coming back 5 days a week either. There are many students who are. One of the things we really thought about, and we've said this consistently over and over again, if we have the opportunity to come back to more normal instruction, in-person instruction. That has been our goal since the start. We're going to do that safely, but it's been a goal. So I would anticipate, and I already know, large groups of students, especially some of our older kids, are going to be challenged by coming back again to 5 days a week. It's something, however, that we feel strongly that we are going to plan for and would be beneficial overall to all kids to get back to school, get the social emotional support, get the interpersonal interpersonal time that is lacking right now, and certainly trying to get some academic support before we end this year. I certainly, as superintendent, would feel better if we could do this and do it safely for 8 weeks, and then which would minimize the transition in the fall. If we're not able to do this, then that transition will significantly increase for kids in the fall, and it would be nice to try to get kids back before that. What about allowing athletes to stay after school instead of parents having to drive? Many already provide transportation to and from school. There would be plenty of room for them to spread out after school. Certainly that's an idea that we can look at. Let me see if there's any other details here. Let me summarize just a little bit because I talked about a lot of information and I've been talking for 50 minutes, so I know it's probably might be hard to take for many of you. So let me just try to get some salient points here. Again, our focus is we're excited about the CDC guidance. We feel like it does open a strong window for us to be able to come back fully in person because it lowers the 3-foot distance. We anticipate and are hopeful that we will have state health department guidance as soon as next week, but hopefully after break, because it is unlikely they are going to remain silent. That would be helpful to us to back up the CDC guidance. It would also be helpful to us for the Ontario County Health Department. That state guidance would support them to continue to support our attempts at reopening. We are also working collaboratively with not only schools in Ontario County, but Monroe County, with significant collaboration so that we can be aligned in what we're doing. And we're all in this together. So you'll see extreme similarities across school districts that are large like us and the plans we put forth to do so. So with that said, we're going to continue to plan for that reopening. And what we have to do is just continue to give you updates when we learn more information and have more definitive answers around things like busing. We'll have more definitive answers and do more work around how lunches will work, what we're going to do about social distancing, perhaps in larger classes. The whole question marks around potential quarantine and the impact of that as we bring kids back. Music, art. Actually, art is semi-normal in terms of we can get them 3 feet apart, but music and phys ed especially, and those types of experiences. My goal would be the week of April 5th to give you much more guidance on that and what we're able to do and what we're not able to do. So we do have a plan moving forward. The goal this week was to really articulate what we need to do, what we're capable of doing, and then what are our challenges in terms of the real challenges of trying to do this, along with the communication that we need to support it. We're really made some strong inroads with that this week, and we continue to work on that. I also want to do a shout out to our, and I've said this publicly numerous times, our 3 unions, Victor Teachers Association, the Administrator Group, VASA, as well as the CSEA, which is made up of many of our hourly employees. All 3 groups have been incredibly supportive. Certainly they have concerns, we all do. Certainly we're trying to listen to those concerns. But in terms of trying to get kids back to what I call semi-normalcy, because it won't be exactly like it was a year and a half ago, certainly. If we're able to do so, though, the support has been excellent and with critical feedback, which is needed. And I appreciate that support as we collaborate to try to do more to get our kids back. A couple other questions before I do a brief comment about the budget. Will the staff or students be allowed and encouraged to spend more time outdoors when the weather permits? Yes, certainly it's going to be based upon the needs of the teacher in the class. We're not going to force them to go outside, but we're going to give them some extreme leeway around that if it's doable. Certainly phys ed classes do that all the time already. We're going to accentuate that. And it is a great resource, and that's why the spring is such a good time to try to attempt to do this. How is the increased traffic going to be handled at drop-off and pickup? I don't have that answer at this point either. It has been it's been a heavy topic of discussion. We know that it would actually be potentially worse than typical in this district, which I experienced for about 3 weeks in February when I was hired. It's pretty extensive, but now we would have more drivers than typical because of the transportation support. So you're right, that's a major issue that we need to get a hold of and make sure we have plans in place to be able to do it. What is the cutoff date to make a move on going back full-time or staying as is? Another great question. I don't have that off the top of my head. I could tell you that if things are significantly uncertain in the middle of April, April 5th through the week of April 12th, that, will start to have me be extremely concerned about it. If we continue with this clear guidance, and again, we get some input from the state and we make inroads on busing and what we can do, and make inroads with our other areas of focus, then I'll feel much better. But I don't have an actual cutoff date at this moment. I guess my goal would be to just communicate with all of you each week where we are, where we stand, and what are our questions and next steps, and take your feedback as well, and continue to take your feedback. As you know, I'll have another community message this Friday. We also have a reopening committee made up of parents, students, staff, administration that are meeting tomorrow from 3:30 to 5 o'clock to review reopening plans and start to really pick it apart a little bit more and make some inroads with it, so that we hopefully are set up for Monday the 5th when we come back from break to really get some work done on these and finish off those plans. Again, hopeful that we get more guidance around it. Let me briefly talk just about the budget. I know that's been a hot topic. We are having an in-person budget workshop tomorrow. Because it's in person, there'll be limited seating, but we are going to live stream it. So it'll be just like our virtual budget workshops and board meetings. You'll be able to watch it live as well as record it and watch it later. There'll also be an ability to attend, but again, that's going to be based upon space concerns with COVID. So we'll monitor the number of people. I don't have that exact number, but it's not a large number of people that can attend, and we're going to have staff there as well. So encourage you to try to attend, but I just need you to be understanding that if you get there and it's already filled up to capacity, that you'll have the ability to watch at home live or recorded. Because it's a workshop, there's no public comment, and that's the way the legalities of workshop are. But we are working on making sure there's clear ability for the community to give us feedback. I think the presentation will be really important tomorrow night. And then whether that's email or other means, we certainly are going to be clearly communicating on Thursday, actually on Friday of this week, some other ways for you to communicate your thoughts on the budget and what we're trying to do. The general consensus right now, we already made some adjustments since our last presentation. I'll give you 3 major points. One, if you look at our overall staffing from this year to next year to overall staffing, we're actually going to increase that staffing to some degree for next year. We need to, based upon certain needs, especially in technology, cleaning, and some other staffing areas like academic intervention services, special education, and again, some unique areas tied to teaching. And although with that being said, we've managed to make some efficient moves to where the actual dollar amount of expenditures from the rollover budget in January, not last year's budget, but from the rollover budget in January is actually decreased to now, which is a good thing. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible. At the same time, we're trying to support staffing needs in a district that is tight with staffing. It's a delicate balance. We're going to explain more of that tomorrow night. We have continue to have a strong emphasis on a comprehensive education. Social emotional supports for our kids are at the hallmark. We're going to talk about that tomorrow night. Academic supports, dealing with COVID, cleaning and health and technology. They're going to be discussed tomorrow night. We have heard from the community, the original, here's an example of listening to the community. The original idea of not replacing one section of elementary enrichment. We were going to go from 2 sections to 1 section based upon attrition. We've heard and listened to the community around that. And so we're going to restore that 2nd section of elementary enrichment. So we're going to keep 2 sections. This year we had 1 because of a retirement and we weren't able to fill it. We're going to put that back to 2 because of the, again, the benefits of that program. We really don't want to be reducing program right now. It's something that we'll continue to look at in a bigger picture, which is really important, enriching all our kids in a variety of ways, especially through our strategic planning. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to try to balance, again, our spending and our revenue. The problem right now with many districts, including ours, is our expenditures still outpace our revenue. And that leads to budget gaps, which can lead to significant financial trouble. We're going to talk about that as well tomorrow night and ways that we can potentially use state aid as well as federal stimulus money to support that budget gap. But we have to be really strategic about it and try to explain it as best as we can tomorrow night. So budget workshop tomorrow night. Again, we're going to make sure that you have the ability to ask questions around our budget. Certainly continue to ask questions on Facebook tonight. We'll try to answer as many of those as possible around the reopening. And like I said at the beginning, we're going to have a question and answer document that goes out to the community either tomorrow or Friday. And I will continue, and we will continue to explain things. You're going to hear a lot more from the building level at your child's school as we get past April break. To give you more specifics at that level, but you'll certainly hear from a district level as well. Really appreciate you tuning in tonight. I know it was a lot of talking by me, but I appreciate it, and we'll look for your feedback and have a great day and a wonderful Thursday to come. Take care.